This video is going to be a film study look at Brandon Stephens, specifically how he's played against the Detroit Lions and the Arizona Cardinals in the last 2 weeks, week 7 and week 8. In my opinion, he's put together a shockingly great 8-game stretch to open the 2023 season. For me, in my observation, from my memory, the only guy who can match the balanced level of play across multiple techniques and responsibilities in the last 4 or 5 years was Marlon Humphrey when he was playing at his best. And that sounds like high praise to be throwing at Brandon Stephens. We're only 8 games into the season. I keep waiting for plays to open up against him. His coverage is just extremely tight. I love when he's playing from an outside leverage in, able to keep eyes on the quarterback and see the route at the same time. We've had great corners around here, especially recently. Jimmy Smith did have one brilliant season left in him in 2019. Marcus Peters came over that year in a trade. The difference for me is that Brandon Stephens tackles really well coming downfield, tackles in space very well, covers in space in open field, man-to-man, quarter split field coverages where he's got to match routes, covers down on the goal line extremely well, way better than he did last season. You can recall him getting beat on the 2-point conversion extremely easily against Jacksonville. That play doesn't happen this year, at least not yet. So far, he's got 2 interceptions, at least 8 passes defensed. I thought he had more. He's posted an 11-tackle game against the Colts while playing as an outside corner. Topped that 2 weeks earlier, first start of the year, 12 tackles in week 1 against the Texans. His coverage has been superb in man or zone or split field quarters coverages, whatever you want to call it. I think he's meant for this defense in terms of the way we mix and match coverages. He's really good at all of them. And I think he does a nice job of disguising his intentions in terms of his coverage. It makes it tough to recognize some of the split field coverage stuff that we do. Going to focus on the last 2 weeks here against the Lions and the Cardinals because he's matched up against some really ultra-quick, smaller receivers. Marquise Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Rondale Moore, Jameson Williams. You're going to see a rep of him against Jameson Williams. Josh Reynolds. I think I actually cut that play out. Bigger, taller, 6'4" receiver for the Lions. Michael Wilson, the talented rookie from Arizona. The broadcast indicated that Brandon Stephens is the most targeted DB in the league. I'm sure people listening will be able to go find a rating service that supports that. I challenge that, to be honest with you. It makes it sound like he's targeted because it's advantageous for the offense to go at him. I reject that notion entirely. I think it's the other way around. His coverage skills are so good. And I also don't think a lot of times even the people, the famous rating services, the ones that are most popular, do not understand what a targeted receiver is. And it's a generalized phrase that shouldn't be thrown out because it comes across as disrespectful to guys like Brandon Stephens, who can react to routes when they're not assigned to guard certain receivers. And I'll show you 2 examples of that in this video. Let's get to the film. Like I said, we're going to start with week 7 against the Lions. And he's going to be matched up against Amon-Ra St. Brown often. You're not going to have to guess about where he is. I'll spot shadow him early and then stop doing so. He's a right side corner, which is crazy in and of itself because that's been Marlon Humphrey's position for years with this franchise. This is one of the situations I'm talking about. To me, this is either supposed to be man with Stephens on St. Brown and Stone taking the running back into the boundary is what I suspect it is. But Stephens is so quick and so adept at seeing the quarterback and guarding his man, he's able to respond to Jahmyr Gibbs out in the flats. Did you see Jahmyr Gibbs on Monday Night Football? 187 total yards, making people miss, breaking tackles. No chance with Brandon Stephens. Granted, he's got the sideline as a help defender here, but he finishes these tackles near the sideline. He doesn't just push people out of bounds. He's playing at an incredibly high level. Again, right side of the defense. This is a 3rd and 12. This is going to be against St. Brown. 4th possession. Completed pass short to St. Brown. I like how he takes outside leverage immediately, gets eyes on the quarterback. He can see the quarterback through. He can see the receiver through his vision to the quarterback, I should say. You can see him on the outside leverage. St. Brown's bringing this route back in. Closes down incredibly well. Watching this live, I thought, okay, it's going to be the type of play where he just pushes St. Brown out of bounds. No, he makes the tackle, inbounds, just like he did with Gibbs there. The number of people that he's tackled in game in 2023, and the level of athlete that is really high. This is probably the best example I can give you of how well he's playing in coverage. Now, there's a moment where St. Brown is open clearly because he's running the under from the other side of the field, and we're playing man. We're playing a unique version of man that I haven't seen us use a whole lot of. I also think that Jadeveon Clowney kind of gets in the window here, but check out what the Ravens are doing. Stevens on St. Brown, check, makes sense. We've got the nickel on the wrong side. He's to the boundary side. He's on Jahmyr Gibbs. Laporta is being guarded by Roquan Smith. And this is Patrick Queen being asked to match up with Josh Reynolds. Clearly not a matchup in our favor, and he gets beat on this play. But this route, against all the grain of this traffic, it should work. 95 times out of 100 for St. Brown. In any year in his NFL career, it's going to work. And he is open right now. And Jared Goff is initially trying to throw the football to him. I think Clowney kind of gets in the window a little bit, makes him pump fake, and that is just enough time for Stevens to recover. Perfect timing, arrived right at the same time as the ball. This is high-level cornerback play. This is a brilliant play against Jameson Williams up at the top of the screen. Deep comeback. He's not fazed at all by vertical releases from guys like Jameson Williams, who are incredibly fast and can blow right by most corners. Stevens is very confident in his skills right now. This is a great challenge, if you ask me. He's just everywhere. The route, they show route trees for receivers. I wish we could see a route tree in terms of balls that Brandon Stevens challenges. Either gets his hands on or challenges the contests, I guess should be the better word that I use there. I'm trying to get to the Week 8 film. My apologies, but he played so well against the Lions last week. I wanted to highlight it. Considered not doing a video on Brandon Stevens because I didn't want to jinx it. Look, Sunday against Arizona, more of the same. 7 tackles, 1 pass defense, 1 interception. Couple of great challenges like you saw there against Jameson Williams. He's up top again, 3rd possession here. Marquise Brown, kind of ho-hum. You see this all the time for him. Brilliant tackle, stop route by Marquise Brown. Able to recover, tackle him for a short gain. In the modern NFL, quick receivers, Marquise Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Rondale Moore, they catch these balls, they turn them into 7 or 8 yard gains. This is shut down, 3.5 yards. Brandon Stevens does that routinely. 4th possession, 3rd and 5. This is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about who's targeted. He's playing man on Michael Wilson on the outside. Again, it's 3rd and 5. He's great at this, tracking the wide receiver and the quarterback in his vision at the same time from that outside angle, seeing the ball thrown, and then helping Roquan Smith make the tackle. Now, I thought he got it. I think it's Williams got it, but Roquan does. Brandon Stevens shouldn't be here, all right? He should not be here. Michael Wilson is clearly running a vertical, but Brandon Stevens, because of how great his eyes are, sees that the ball has already been released and is able to go help out. He's not playing flats here. He's not playing out in the flats where he can challenge a 3rd and 5 out route by Michael Wilson. That's not what he's playing. I think they're playing some type of pattern read. He had just communicated to Geno Stone, sees Josh Dobbs pull the pin on the grenade. Roquan gets to the outside shoulder. Brandon Stevens finishes him off. I still think it's really close to him getting it, but as it stands, goes down as a 4.5 yard gain and forced a punt. I think it's a great example of his awareness and how ridiculous it is to talk about targets sometimes when guys like Brandon Stevens can react to areas of the field that are not their responsibility. Next possession, this is a great catch in midair on this interception. Clearly the ball is thrown high. I do think that Queen's blitz might have impacted Josh Dobbs' throwing window, his platform. Queen's going to blitz, go into the center, to the play side, get his hand up so you can see Queen's right arm right there. And Stevens is staying on top of this thing. Kind of like this little slant out. Ball's thrown too high. Great catch in midair, though. Regardless of what we think about Dobbs' throw, for Stevens to convert it into an interception was amazing because he got to catch it in midair. Great timing. 2nd interception of the season. Cool moment to see him get an interception and Geno Stone. Of course, Geno Stone stole that interception from Brandon Stevens. Stevens really could have had 2 of them. Same play, end zone angle. You'll see Queen kind of get in the window of Dobbs throwing lane. And maybe Dobbs is releasing this ball a little bit further out to his right, the top side of that line that I drew, to get it around Queen. Clearly ends up being a flyer. I didn't think the announcers were real understanding of some of those situations during the game, being critical of the quarterback and not understanding that there's a guy in his throwing window. Late in the game here, just blankets Michael Wilson on this fade up to the top side of the screen. We're going to see this route again. Seattle's tight ends and wide receivers are huge. DK Metcalf, Fant, the tight end, Bobo, the rookie wide receiver, 84. I forget his name. I want to say maybe it's Christensen, but 6'4", 6'5" guys. Those fades, would look appealing, but this is a great job by Stevens, who has limited height in terms of his matchup against some of those bigger guys. Possibly a blown coverage here, in my opinion, very similar to the one I showed you where he covered St. Brown across the screen on that 2nd and 3 challenge where Goff pump faked it. I think this is a blown coverage on someone because McBride ends up wide open. This is one of the coverage plays that confused me and quite honestly pissed me off. Where this late in the game, you can't make coverage mistakes. I suspect that this might be on Stevens, but I'm not sure because Queen also released his guy underneath the tight end and then took over the running back. So I'm not exactly sure, whose fault it is here. I'm not sure if it was discussed in a press conference. You guys know I don't have time to watch those things. Ends up going down as a big gain, and for some reason we challenged him being out of bounds. So blown coverage gets him a huge gain. This one's complete to Rondale Moore. Another situation where he's able to close down. It does go down as a 6-yard gain, I believe. That's the longest gain I've seen against him on some of these short completions, where he's able to come downhill and front up the receiver, meaning simultaneously not allow the receiver this inside, go to all that space. And then when the receiver turns and runs to the sideline, he's able to track with him. And he does actually have to push him out of bounds this time. But that's a skill in and of itself. You've got to be athletic enough to close down the front side by fronting him up, we used to say, number one. And then number two, you've also got to be able to turn and run to the sideline because you don't have any help at that point. There's so much space there to cover. Goes down as a 6-yard gain to Rondale Moore. Still think it's a nice play by Brandon Stevens. All right, after Oweh, I'm sorry, this is same possession up top. Going to be a completion to McBride against Hamilton down on the bottom. Brandon Stevens is matched up against Marquise Brown. I think Marquise Brown's going to do like this little stutter, and then try to bring this back in against Stevens. Stevens doesn't go for the fake at all. Complete against Hamilton. Short by a yard. Oweh jumped off sides, creating this touchdown pass to Marquise Brown against Kyle Hamilton. And again, you've got the little in cut that's basically, clearing out that space by Michael Wilson against Brandon Stevens, who I think has got a pretty good line on him. Potentially the ball could be thrown in here, and Stevens would have to clear underneath Rondale Moore and get there to challenge it. So it's a tough scheme to deal with. Basically pick rub concepts. They're not going to throw the ball to Moore. He's just basically acting to shield and get Wilson open. I think Stevens has done a pretty good job against those routes this year. Very similar to the Rondale Moore 6-yard gain that I showed you a minute ago. This is the ensuing 2-point conversion. And again, he's up top of your screen, right-hand side of the defense. Our version of stick split 0 comes down at that same angle to front up Marquise Brown. Doesn't finish off the tackle, but Kyle Hamilton does. That's the whole point and design of that defense, is that everyone is looking at the quarterback, and once he throws the football, everyone can pursue and react to it to get to the football and prevent any long gains, prevent much yards after the catch. Another solid day, if you ask me, for Brandon Stevens out at right corner, outside corner, for a guy who none of us thought would be playing this well at outside corner as a starter. I will say I didn't. I did not. Did I think that he could start for us? I thought it was questionable. If you were to ask me in the preseason, hey, we've got a healthy version of Ronald Darby, a healthy or generally healthy version of Rock Ya-Sin, and Marlon Humphrey is back, will Brandon Stevens be starting? I would have said no. I think most of us probably would have, but the Ravens coaches, front office, clearly saw something in him that we didn't from a consistency standpoint. I think his awareness and recognition is allowing him to play faster than he is. And by no means am I saying that he's slow. Not at all. But I think that's why some of the close downs, some of the space that looks like it's there for a moment ends up not being there, because Brandon Stephens has got a great skill of being able to see the receiver and the quarterback in the same field of vision from the outside leverage. And then you saw at least 3 examples, I believe, of him playing man on receivers and then coming off of that coverage, coming off of that responsibility, because he's able to see the ball thrown. I think that's a trait in and of itself that adds to the all the components that are Brandon Stephens from a physical standpoint. That level of awareness, his eye discipline, and ability to react to plays that are really not his to cover, acts as a force multiplier for this defense. Man, I think he's having an unbelievable season. I'm just honored to be able to watch him play this well for a 25, 26-year-old dude from Plano, Texas, which if you don't know much about that, that's like football mecca in Texas, or one of the football meccas in Texas. In any case, you guys let me know what you think of the film study video, how I broke down the plays and talked about Brandon Stephens' play in Week 7 and Week 8 as we head into the Week 8 matchup at home against the Seattle Seahawks.